Have you ever felt like you're chasing life's promises, only to end up empty-handed? The world pushes us to seek fulfillment in achievements, possessions, and even relationships, but deep down, something always feels incomplete. What if the real answer isn't found in what you do, but in who you love? Jesus taught that loving God with all your heart, soul, and mind is the foundation of a truly abundant life. This isn't just a religious idea, it's a transformative truth. When you put God first, everything changes. Your struggles gain purpose. Your relationships are enriched, and your heart is filled with a peace the world can't offer. Are you ready to uncover how loving God above all else can reshape your life from the inside out? Let's dive in. Loving God above all else isn't something automatic. It's a profound journey that unfolds as we fully open our hearts to Him. Think of it like any meaningful relationship. You don't truly love someone without knowing them deeply. The same principle applies here. Taking the time to understand God, whether through prayer, studying the Bible, or reflecting on His presence, is like watering a seed. Little by little that seed grows, and its roots strengthen. Every sunrise, every intricate detail of nature becomes a reminder of His greatness and an invitation to draw closer to Him. But what does it really mean to love deeply? It's not just an emotion, it's a commitment that shapes how we think, feel, and act. Imagine someone who's passionate about music. They don't just listen, they immerse themselves in it. In the same way, loving God should be reflected in every part of our lives. It's about practicing gratitude for both the big and small things. Start by appreciating the air you breathe, the kindness of a stranger, or even challenges that refine your character. When God becomes the center of your life, everything else begins to fall into place. It's like adjusting the focus on a camera lens. What once seemed blurry becomes clear when you fix your perspective on Him. Have you ever started your day with an honest prayer, asking for wisdom or direction? It's remarkable how even the toughest situations become opportunities for growth when you trust in His guidance. Challenges may still arise, but His peace will ground you in ways the world cannot. True love for God is holistic, engaging your heart, soul, and mind. It's not just about what you feel, but about aligning your thoughts and choices with His values. For example, when facing a tough decision, ask yourself, does this reflect my love for God? Sometimes this might mean stepping away from comfort to embrace what He's calling you to do. It's a choice that may feel risky, but always leads to deeper fulfillment. Scripture teaches us that loving God means keeping His commandments, not as a burden, but as an act of devotion. Think about an athlete who follows strict rules, not because they have to, but because they're passionate about their sport. In the same way, following God's ways isn't about restriction, but freedom. Start small. Show kindness to someone, even if no one notices, or choose integrity in a situation where it'd be easier not to. These simple acts speak volumes about your commitment. This love isn't static, it's transformative. The closer you get to God, the more your priorities shift, your thoughts align with His truth, and your life takes on a richer purpose. Have you ever noticed how a powerful song can change your entire mood? Now imagine how being filled with God's love can reshape your entire day. Every moment becomes a chance to live with purpose and intention. Loving God doesn't mean withdrawing from the world. It means engaging with it in ways that reflect His character. Imagine responding to frustrating moments, like a traffic jam or a heated argument, with patience and grace. These are real opportunities to practice the love you've received. It's in these everyday situations that God's presence becomes most evident to others. Our love for God also influences how we relate to others. When He's first in our lives, we learn to love people with authenticity, free from selfish motives. Think of someone in need, a co-worker who's overwhelmed, or a stranger carrying a heavy load. A small gesture, like offering a helping hand, or an encouraging word, can reflect God's love in tangible ways. This love redefines what we value and how we measure success. Instead of chasing things that fade, like status, possessions, or fleeting pleasures, we learn to cherish what truly matters. Have you ever bought something you thought would make you happy, only to feel empty later? God's love fills that void, offering joy in the simple things, like sharing laughter with a loved one or taking a peaceful walk. A relationship with God is never stagnant. It's alive, always growing, and doesn't demand perfection, just a willing heart. Even when you stumble, His grace is there to lift you back up. This week, why not try something new, like journaling your prayers? It's a practical way to reflect on your spiritual growth and recognize how far you've come. There's no limit to God's love, and the more we embrace it, the more we become vessels of His grace. How can you bring more of His love into your life? Maybe it's taking a moment to really listen to someone, offering your time to serve, or simply pausing to admire the beauty of creation. Each of these small acts is a reflection of a much greater love. God's love is the foundation of everything we are. Loving God is not just about a vertical relationship with Him. It naturally extends outward, impacting how we interact with others. When God's love fills your heart, it spills over into your words, actions, and decisions. Think about how a full cup overflows when poured into. This is the essence of loving others through the love we receive. Whether it's showing patience in a tough conversation or choosing kindness when it's least expected, these small acts reflect a heart aligned with God's will. To love others as God loves us is a high calling, one that requires grace, humility, and intentionality. Imagine forgiving someone who's wronged you, not because they deserve it, but because you've been forgiven yourself. That's the kind of transformative love we're called to embody. It's not always easy, but when you choose love over resentment, you experience a freedom that nothing else can provide. This love isn't just passive, it's active, often requiring sacrifice. It might mean giving your time to a friend in need, even when your schedule feels overwhelming. Or it could be as simple as listening deeply to someone who feels unheard. These actions, though small in the moment, can have a profound impact. Think about the last time someone made you feel valued. How did it change your day? You have the same power to uplift others through God's love working in you. When you love others with the love of God, you begin to see them differently. Instead of focusing on their flaws, you start to recognize their inherent value as His creation. Have you ever looked at someone and thought about the challenges they might be facing silently? That shift in perspective fosters compassion and helps you treat them with the grace you'd hope to receive. This kind of love transforms relationships. It encourages healthier communication, fosters trust, and builds deeper connections. Picture a family conflict or a work disagreement. Approaching these situations with patience and understanding rather than anger or pride can completely change the outcome. It doesn't mean you'll always agree, but it ensures the door to reconciliation remains open. As you grow in this love, you also grow in empathy. God's love helps you step outside of yourself and consider the needs of others. Imagine volunteering at a shelter or donating to a cause you're passionate about. These are tangible ways to extend His love to those who need it most. And it's not just about grand gestures. Sometimes, a simple text message to check on someone can make all the difference. Loving others also challenges you to let go of selfishness. It's easy to get caught up in your own world, but God calls us to think beyond ourselves. Consider how you spend your time and resources. Are there areas where you could give more generously, whether through finances, talents, or simply your presence? When you step outside your comfort zone to serve others, you not only bless them, but also grow in your own faith. This love often requires a willingness to embrace discomfort. It might mean standing up for someone who's being mistreated or offering help when it's inconvenient. These moments test your faith, but also refine it, drawing you closer to God. Think of it like exercise, challenging in the moment, but ultimately strengthening you for the journey ahead. God's love also inspires unity. When you prioritize love in your interactions, you break down barriers of division and create space for understanding. In a world that often feels divided, imagine the power of being a peacemaker. Whether it's mending a broken friendship or bridging a gap in your community, your actions can inspire others to do the same. This kind of love is contagious. When you live it out, people notice. Your example can encourage others to approach life with more kindness and grace. It's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. Have you ever seen someone go out of their way to help a stranger? Those moments stick with us because they reflect something deeper, the kind of love we're all searching for. Loving others with God's love also requires perseverance. There will be times when people test your patience or make it difficult to show grace. But in those moments, remember the patience and grace God has shown you. Lean on Him for strength and trust that even small acts of love can have eternal significance. As you continue to walk in this love, it becomes a testimony. Your life becomes a reflection of God's goodness, drawing others closer to Him. Every kind word, selfless act, and moment of forgiveness points back to His love. And this opens the door to an even deeper question. How can this love transform the way you see yourself? The love of God doesn't stop at shaping how we treat others. It reaches inward, transforming the way we see ourselves. For many, this is the hardest step, accepting that they are deeply loved and valued by the Creator of the universe. Have you ever struggled with self-doubt, feeling unworthy or inadequate? God's love speaks directly to those fears, reminding you that your worth isn't tied to your achievements or failures. It's rooted in the fact that you were created with purpose, in His image. When you begin to view yourself through the lens of God's love, everything changes. Instead of being consumed by flaws or past mistakes, you start to see yourself as He does, a work in progress, deeply loved and full of potential. Imagine what it would feel like to let go of perfectionism and rest in the truth that you're enough simply because He says so. That shift doesn't just ease the weight of self-criticism, it empowers you to live boldly. This self-perception grounded in God's love also fosters a healthy confidence. Not the kind based on pride, but one rooted in knowing who you are and whose you are. Have you ever noticed how some people seem unshakable in their faith, even in the face of challenges? That kind of confidence comes from trusting that God's love is constant, no matter what life throws your way. When you embrace His love, you also gain a sense of peace. You stop striving for approval from others because you realize you're already accepted by the one who matters most. Think about how much energy we spend worrying about what people think or comparing ourselves to others. What if you redirected that energy toward growing in your relationship with God? The result is freedom, not just from comparison, but from fear and insecurity. God's love helps you see your strengths and weaknesses with clarity. Instead of denying your flaws or being consumed by them, you can acknowledge them with grace, knowing that His power is made perfect in weakness. Have you ever thought about how your struggles can be used to inspire others? Maybe it's through sharing your story or simply being present for someone walking a similar path. This love also invites you to care for yourself in ways that honor Him. Taking care of your physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being isn't selfish. It's an act of stewardship. Imagine making time for rest, nourishing your body with healthy choices, or setting boundaries in relationships. These are practical ways to live out the truth that you are valued by God. As you grow in your understanding of His love, you begin to shed the lies that have held you back. The world may tell you that your worth is tied to your success, appearance, or status, but God's love reminds you that these things are fleeting. True worth comes from being His child. Have you ever paused to reflect on what it means to be unconditionally loved? That realization has the power to silence even the harshest inner critic. God's love also gives you the courage to pursue your purpose. When you stop doubting your value, you're free to step into the plans He has for you. Whether it's using your gifts in your career, serving in your community, or raising a family with love and integrity, you can do so with confidence, knowing that you're equipped for the task. This transformation isn't instant. It's a process. There will be days when you feel far from God or struggle to believe these truths about yourself. But even in those moments, His love doesn't waver. Consider starting a gratitude journal where you write down reminders of His faithfulness. Over time, these small acts of reflection can reshape the way you think about yourself. When you see yourself through the eyes of God, you also become more forgiving of your mistakes. Have you ever replayed a failure over and over in your mind, wishing you could change the past? God's love offers a fresh start. Instead of being stuck in regret, you can move forward, learning from the experience and trusting Him to use it for good. His love also encourages you to dream bigger. When you understand that you're loved unconditionally, you stop being afraid of failure. You're willing to take risks, knowing that your worth doesn't depend on the outcome. What would you do if you weren't afraid of falling short? Maybe it's pursuing a passion, starting a new chapter in your life, or simply stepping out of your comfort zone. As God's love transforms how you see yourself, it naturally spills over into every other area of your life. You treat others with more grace, approach challenges with more courage, and face each day with a deeper sense of purpose. And just when you think you've reached the depth of His love, there's always more to discover. When you love God with all your heart and embrace the way His love shapes your identity, it naturally begins to influence your priorities and decisions. You start to live with a sense of purpose that transcends daily routines and fleeting goals. Have you ever asked yourself, what am I truly living for? This question becomes less daunting when your focus shifts to aligning your life with His will. It's not about perfection, but about intentionality, letting each step reflect His values. Living with God at the center means evaluating what really matters. Think about how much time we spend chasing things that in the grand scheme of life won't last. Whether it's career accolades, material possessions, or social validation, these pursuits can feel empty without a greater purpose. Imagine investing that energy in building a life that echoes God's priorities, one filled with love, service, and integrity. When you put God first, even your smallest choices take on deeper meaning. Everyday decisions, like how you spend your money, time, and talents, become opportunities to honor Him. Picture someone who chooses to simplify their life to create space for what truly matters. Spending time with family, serving others, or pursuing a calling. These aren't just admirable goals. They're reflections of a life aligned with God's purposes. God's love also inspires us to approach life with open hands. Instead of clinging tightly to our plans, we learn to trust Him, even when things don't go as expected. Have you ever experienced a moment when something you desperately wanted didn't happen, only to realize later it was for the best? These are reminders of His wisdom and care, guiding us toward what's ultimately good for us. Prioritizing God means stepping out in faith, even when the path isn't clear. It might mean making a career change that aligns more closely with your values, or saying no to opportunities that conflict with your convictions. These decisions aren't always easy, but they bring a peace that only comes from walking in obedience. And often they open doors to blessings you couldn't have imagined. As you make decisions with God in mind, your perspective on success starts to shift. It's no longer about achievements or accolades, but about living in a way that pleases Him. Have you ever met someone whose joy and peace seemed unshakable, no matter their circumstances? That kind of contentment comes from knowing your life is aligned with something eternal. Putting God first also challenges you to simplify. In a world that constantly pushes us to do more, buy more, and achieve more, stepping back and focusing on what truly matters can feel countercultural. Think about how decluttering your physical or emotional space can free you to focus on relationships, spiritual growth, or serving others. Sometimes, less really is more. When God guides your priorities, you also begin to see your time differently. Instead of rushing through life, you start to value moments of stillness and reflection. Have you ever taken a quiet morning to pray, journal, or simply enjoy nature? These small pauses can recalibrate your heart and remind you of what's most important. Living with purpose doesn't mean abandoning your dreams. It means aligning them with God's will. Perhaps you have a talent or passion that's been waiting to be used for something greater. Imagine using your skills to serve your community, mentor others, or create something that glorifies God. It's not about becoming famous or successful. It's about making an impact that lasts. God's love also transforms how you approach challenges. Instead of seeing setbacks as failures, you begin to view them as opportunities to grow and rely on Him. Have you ever faced a difficult season that ultimately deepened your faith or taught you resilience? Those moments, though painful, are often the ones that bring us closer to His plan. This shift in priorities also brings freedom. When you're no longer tied to worldly expectations, you can focus on what truly matters. Imagine being able to say no to things that drain you and yes to the things that align with your purpose. This kind of clarity isn't something you achieve overnight, but with God's guidance, it becomes your new normal. As you continue to live with purpose and align your priorities with God's will, you begin to see the ripple effect it has on every aspect of your life. Your relationships grow stronger, your work feels more meaningful, and even mundane tasks take on a sense of significance. And as this alignment deepens, it raises a question. How does this newfound clarity shape the way you handle life's challenges and uncertainties? When you align your priorities with God's love and purpose, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see life's challenges and uncertainties in a completely new light. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, you start to approach them with a sense of trust and confidence that can only come from Him. Have you ever faced a moment when everything seemed to fall apart, yet you found unexpected strength to move forward? That strength is a direct reflection of faith in God's unwavering presence. Challenges, though uncomfortable, are often opportunities for growth. Think of them as the refining fire that shapes and strengthens your character. Have you noticed how hardships often teach us the most about ourselves and our relationship with God? When you face a setback, whether it's a failed plan or a personal loss, it's a chance to lean into His promises and rediscover the resilience He's placed within you. Faith doesn't mean avoiding difficulties. It means navigating them with the assurance that you're never alone. Imagine going through a tough season at work, feeling unsupported or undervalued. By surrendering your frustration to God and seeking His wisdom, you're able to shift your perspective and find solutions that may not have been obvious before. Trusting Him doesn't always make the problem disappear, but it gives you the courage to face it head-on. One of the most challenging aspects of uncertainty is the fear of the unknown. But when you anchor your trust in God, you realize that His plans are always better than your own. Have you ever looked back on a situation and realized that what you thought was a detour was actually part of His design? It's a humbling reminder that His ways are higher than ours and His timing is always perfect. Faith also invites us to be proactive during uncertain times. It's not about sitting back and waiting for things to resolve themselves. It's about stepping out in obedience, even when you don't have all the answers. Think of someone who feels called to start a new career or ministry but is held back by fear. Taking the first step, even if it feels small, is an act of trust that God honors. Another powerful way to navigate challenges is by focusing on gratitude. It might sound counterintuitive, but finding reasons to be thankful, even in the midst of hardship, shifts your mindset. Have you ever kept a gratitude journal or taken a moment each day to thank God for specific blessings? These small practices can ground you in His goodness and remind you that His faithfulness never wavers. Uncertainty can also be a powerful teacher. It forces you to release control and place your trust fully in God. Consider the story of someone facing a financial crisis. While the immediate reaction might be panic, turning to God in prayer and seeking His guidance can lead to unexpected solutions and peace. These moments deepen your reliance on Him and prove that His provision is enough. In seasons of uncertainty, community plays a crucial role. Surrounding yourself with people who encourage and support your faith can make all the difference. Have you ever reached out to a friend or joined a group during a tough time? Their prayers, wisdom, and companionship remind you that you're not walking this journey alone. Challenges also have a way of strengthening your testimony. The trials you endure and overcome become stories of God's faithfulness that you can share with others. Think of someone who has faced a serious illness and used their experience to encourage others going through similar struggles. Your story, no matter how messy, can be a beacon of hope to those around you. Faith doesn't mean you'll always understand what God is doing, but it does mean trusting that He's working behind the scenes. Imagine a puzzle where you can only see a few pieces, but God sees the entire picture. This perspective allows you to rest even when things don't make sense in the moment. Perhaps one of the greatest lessons challenges teach us is humility. They remind us that we can't do it all on our own and that we need God's strength to carry us through. Have you ever prayed for help in a moment of desperation and experienced a peace that surpassed all understanding? That's the kind of dependence that transforms lives. As you continue to grow in faith, you start to see challenges not as roadblocks, but as stepping stones. They prepare you for the next stage of your journey and deepen your trust in God's plan. And as you look ahead, you begin to wonder, how can this trust shape not just your present struggles, but the dreams and opportunities God is calling you toward? When your faith influences the world around you, it naturally extends to creating a legacy that honors God and impacts future generations. A legacy isn't just about what you achieve in your lifetime. It's about the values, love, and wisdom you pass on to others. Have you ever thought about how the choices you make today can shape the lives of those who come after you? Every act of faith, kindness, and obedience to God contributes to a story that lasts far beyond your years. Leaving a lasting legacy begins with intentional living. It's about aligning your priorities with God's purpose and making choices that reflect His love and truth. Imagine someone who consistently shows grace and integrity in their daily life. Their actions leave an impression on their children, friends, and community, creating a ripple effect that continues for generations. Teaching and mentoring are powerful ways to pass on your faith. Whether you're a parent, teacher, or simply someone others look up to, your words and actions have the ability to shape how others view God. Have you ever shared a lesson or story that resonated deeply with someone? Those moments of guidance can plant seeds of faith that grow over time. Your legacy is also reflected in the way you handle challenges. When you face difficulties with faith and perseverance, you set an example of resilience for others to follow. Picture a family going through a tough time, but choosing to trust God and support one another. Their story becomes a testimony that inspires others to hold on to hope in their own struggles. Generosity is another cornerstone of a lasting legacy. Sharing your time, resources, and talents creates opportunities for others to experience God's love. Think of someone who uses their blessings to bless others, whether through acts of kindness, financial support, or volunteer work. Their selflessness leaves a mark that can't be measured by material standards, but has eternal significance. A legacy grounded in faith also involves living with purpose and clarity. It's about being intentional with how you spend your time and energy, focusing on what truly matters. Have you ever considered how your daily routines and habits reflect your values? By prioritizing faith, family, and service, you set an example for others to follow. Your story becomes part of your legacy, especially when you share it with authenticity. Being open about your journey with God, the struggles, victories, and lessons learned, can encourage others to seek Him. Have you ever heard someone's testimony and felt a deep connection or inspiration? Your story, no matter how imperfect, can have the same impact. Building a legacy also means creating a culture of faith in your home and community. This could involve family traditions like prayer, Bible study, or serving together. Imagine the impact of children growing up in an environment where faith is not just spoken about, but actively lived out. Those early experiences often shape their relationship with God for years to come. Prayer plays a crucial role in shaping your legacy. Praying for your family, friends, and future generations invites God to work in their lives in ways you may never see. Have you ever heard stories of someone's life being changed because a grandparent or parent prayed faithfully for them? Your prayers are a powerful part of the legacy you leave behind. Investing in the next generation is one of the most impactful ways to create a lasting legacy. Whether it's mentoring young people, supporting education, or encouraging others to pursue their God-given dreams, your influence helps shape the future. Picture someone whose career or faith journey was sparked by the encouragement of a mentor. That could be you making that difference. Your legacy isn't just about big dramatic moments. It's built in the small, consistent ways you live out your faith. Every kind word, selfless act, and moment of obedience contributes to a story that reflects God's love. Have you ever considered how even the simplest choices, like showing patience or offering forgiveness, can leave a profound impact on someone's life? Ultimately, a legacy rooted in God's love and purpose points others to Him. It's not about leaving behind material wealth or worldly achievements, but about creating a life that glorifies God and inspires others to seek Him. And as you reflect on the legacy you're building, ask yourself, how can I continue to live intentionally today to ensure that my faith echoes for generations to come?